So there's this new report out, and honestly, I can't help but just kind of laughing at this, but basically what they're claiming is that nature in some way is racist. I'm not kidding you. There was actually this guy on Twitter like a couple of months ago that basically put out a post saying, guys, just I want you to comment and just name something, name anything, and I'll give you a reason why somebody on the left has said that it's racist. And it was all of these people were like, oh, water. And it's like, well, here's how your water's racist. Like, I mean, it would blow your mind as to what these people come up with. And this time, a legitimate report saying that now nature is racist, basically. So this is a report from this place called the Outside Interactive, whatever that is, but they're alleging that America's historically racist policies have contributed to the nature gap, and I'll be coming to that in a second. But it's saying that it results in Black Americans having less enjoyment of so-called the great outdoors, okay? So they're calling this a nature gap. Now, this is actually probably coming very similar to something that is like the wage gap or something like that you've heard leftists talk about before. But when usually somebody says a wage gap or some other kind of gap, they're usually saying, hey, here's a measurable thing. Here's the amount of money that we're looking at this way, and here's the amount of money these people make this way, and as a result, here is the gap in between, and we need to figure out how to get this gap from here to this particular point because so that it's equal or wherever it needs to be. Now, the problem is with, of course, that is they were using the wrong statistics in the wage gap situation because, it's been debunked 1,000 times. But when you're talking about a nature gap, what exactly are you using as the objective metric to determine whether somebody has an affinity for the outdoors or not? Like, exactly what are you referring to? So they're using this and they're saying one of the biggest reasons why I want to show Black folks nature and adventure is because it deeply heals. Nature taught me how to love myself deeper than I had known. Sounds like they need Jesus, but whatever. I mean, these people are literally worshiping nature. That's kind of odd. But they said that through its depths, I found mine. As Black people have historically had a lack of access to nature, we synonymously had a lack of access to our own healing. We have inherited trauma that still needs to be healed as a collective. Healing is a part of our freedom. Now, I don't know what it's talking about in the end there. It's just kind of running on with this leftist ideology mess. But I think the real takeaway here is where some of the charts were showing this thing where it's like, okay, well, most Black people are not in areas that have a bunch of nature around it, if you want to call it that. I guess you would probably look somewhat to middle America or outskirts of certain areas, right? So basically what they're saying is, well, also low income housing and things like that are also very much so in city areas that don't have a lot of nature. And I'm like, maybe that's a part of it. I mean, if you think of the heavily Black areas, they're all either in low-income housing or in poor neighborhoods, okay? So I don't know why anybody would build a poor neighborhood or a project or something like that out in the woods or out in the, in the areas that are kind of in the outskirts of a city. This is how it works. And it also wouldn't be accessible to anything, which is once again why these people just aren't paying attention to what's going on. If one thing is true about the idea that low-income housing is typically very close to the inner parts of the city, then why would you be surprised that Black people, which are also very commonly low income, are also in that inner city area as well? I don't understand what makes that racist whatsoever. The point is that even given the option, I can bet you money, and this has nothing to do with racism at all, that the vast majority of Black people would not want to be living, especially if they're poor, to be living 30 minutes away from the closest Walmart, 30 minutes away from the closest areas where they can go shop for something. That's probably not up their alley. That's not something that they probably want to do. You assuming this by saying, well, Black people need all this nature healing and stuff. You're assuming that they want to move there. I haven't heard anybody that's saying, I really need to move in a more nature-oriented area. I need to move out into middle America where there's no big cities and live out there on the farm. And that's what I really want to do. Nobody's saying that I've heard of. So you're assuming that they want it, which I'm firmly believing that they don't want that and don't care about that. And also are more concerned about convenience and things being close to them. most people live in areas that are not super surrounded by nature and grass and plains of fields and everything like that. So it's kind of stupid for them to call this a nature gap and then to refer to nature as basically being racist against black people. Plus, it's dumb anyways when they're saying, well, black people aren't even really that oriented to being out in nature. I don't get that. I don't understand that. If anything, you can be referring to maybe the idea that cities have become so, just have gotten rid of a lot of the just greenery and everything around it in general due to just expansion and growth. But more people lived in greener areas just 50 years ago than they do today in the same places. So it's just kind of weird. I don't really understand exactly what angle they're trying to come at this from. But once again, I think most people are fine living in the city if they live in the city. And I don't understand why they automatically assume that people, for some reason, want to be out in nature. Not everybody wants to do that. So you can't really call it a gap when you have no measurable metric to show when something's gotten to whatever level you feel like it needs to be at. Where in their perfect world, all things are equal, which is obviously impossible for them to achieve anyways. But that's another story. You just watched a clip from The William Hall Show. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.